right, well, hello everybody, and welcome to the seminar on 10 ways to send your kid to college debt-free. My name is Mark Ashton. I serve in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is the year 2021. And much of the stuff that I'm going to be teaching you is a bit time sensitive, so as you're seeing this seminar, especially if this is not 2021 when you're seeing it, know that names and facts and dates and data changes, so make sure you check everything out to make sure that it is current and up to date for your time. But what I plan to do over the course of this seminar is to give you 10 ways to send your kid to college debt-free and focus a lot of it on the 10th way, which is through academic scholarships. Let me tell you a little bit of the backdrop first, because a few years ago, I had a conversation that changed my life. I was away at a camp in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and one of my fellow campers there, a fellow pastor, talked to me about how he sent his kids to college. I was basically lamenting as I thought about the cost of 4 kids going to college. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. And he said, I got all 3 of my boys through college debt-free. And I said, oh, you got some secrets to share? He says, sure, let's meet after dinner. And for 2 hours, he walked me through this system of what he had done with his kids and just dropped a bomb on me that had so much wisdom that I've worked with it with my first 3 kids. My 4th is now a junior in high school, and have helped my kids to have no debt when they reach age 22, regardless of what their college experience might be. You'll hear a little bit more about my first 3 a little bit later on in this seminar. But one of the things I need to let you know is that this is a very content-rich seminar. There's tons of details and data in there, and in order to be able to serve you, I have given you the handout for this seminar. It's in the link below, so go ahead and click on the link below, and you'll be able to pull out this seminar, 10 Ways to Send Your Kid to College Debt-Free. And all of the things that I'm going to say are on here, because if you tried to write it down, you would get a hand cramp. Now, let me tell you, the first thing that I do for my kids when they get to be around age 14 and a half or 15 is I sit them down and I have the debt conversation. I kind of drop the bomb on them. Why? Because almost no 14 or 15-year-old is thinking about what debt they're going to have when they're 22. Most of them have no conception of what college is going to cost, and most of them aren't planning to be able to be in a position to be able to pay for school. Yet, when you ask the question, hey, what's the optimal time for a student to start thinking about getting through college debt-free, I would say it's somewhere around the age of 14 or 15, particularly if they're planning to get academic scholarships. And here's the way that conversation goes, and it's on page 1 of your notes. First of all, I talk them through what it's going to cost to go to college. Now, if you look on your sheets, you'll find that the average public university today is $8,655 in tuition, a private college, $35,000 of tuition, and an out-of-state college is $27,000 in tuition. Room and board will run you between $10,000 and $12,000 per school, depending on which one you go to. And when you add all of the expenses together, it's $22,000, $55,000, and $39,000 respectively. Now, I thought about this with my 4 kids, and I thought, okay, let's assume my 4 kids go to state schools. That's $88,000. I send them to private schools, that's over $200,000. And if I send them to a public school, that's $156,000. Now, I said that's for my 4 kids. That's actually not true. That's for 1 kid for 4 years. 1 kid for 4 years. Now you multiply that by 4 kids, and oh my goodness, you're at $352,000 or $800,000 or $624,000. In round terms, I like to say, in order to send 4 kids to college, it would cost me around $500,000. That's the largest expense that I would spend on anything in my life. And so you say, if I'm going to be strategic about anything, my kids' education is one of those. Now, down below there, you'll see some real-life examples of what it looks like to go to college at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, Lincoln, Creighton University. The most expensive I've seen in the Midwest is Northwestern University, with a total attendance cost of $73,000 per year. Metro here in the area is the Steel. That's the deal, $2,880. Crown College is a part of our denomination, the Christian Missionary Alliance, and Toccoa Falls as well, and they come in at 26 grand and 21 grand respectively. Now, when you think about the real costs of college, one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, how much debt do I want to have, or can I tolerate to have when I'm 22 years old? And I put some details down for you to be able to kind of get the wake-up call and see, here's what it costs. If you go into debt $5,000 per year for 4 years, you'd have $20,000 of debt. And if that winds up on the parental student loan program at 5.3%, you'd be paying $215 every single month for 10 years to pay that debt off. If it's $40,000, that's $430 a month. If it's $60,000, $645 a month. If you wound up with $100,000 in student loan debt, your student would be spending $1,075 of the first money that they have coming in every month. This may be as much as the first week or 2 weeks of their paycheck is just going to pay off student loans every single month. That's an enormous economic burden, and it's a burden that I didn't want to have placed on my kids. When I show my kids this data, they start asking the questions, okay, Dad, how do I get out of this? And I think you need to ask, whether you're a student or a parent, do you want your kids to be enslaved to these kinds of numbers for a decade after they graduate? Or would you rather they be free from that? One of the important conversations that a parent and student need to have together is answering this. What is your tolerance for debt? You can take some of these numbers right here, sit down together and say, when you graduate from college, where do you want to be on this? Now, some people are going to have a higher tolerance for debt. And maybe that's just because they say, I'm willing to live a simple lifestyle after college to get the kind of college that I want. Or maybe it's because they're heading into a high-income profession. So like if you're becoming an aeronautical engineer or a lawyer or a surgeon, well, it just might be the case that you say, it's just worth it for me because I'm going to make so much money in my first few years that I can pay that debt down a lot faster than a 10-year cycle, and I'm willing to do that. And that may be the case for each of you, but it's a decision that a parent and a kid should be making together early on so you can think about that. I think the other things that are helpful to ask is, okay, in 3 years or 4 years, how much are the parents willing to contribute towards a kid's education? How much should the kid be willing to contribute to their education? How much should grandma and grandpa be willing to contribute towards that education? And grandma and grandpa is always the bonus in this equation. But I think that students can fairly easily make $3,000 every summer. They may be willing to work while they're in college. They may have some savings going into college. So start with that money. Build on the parents' money. If there's grandparent money, you should be able to see what the delta is between what you can afford every year and what the college that you'd like to go to costs. Now, for most people, and my family is included in this, there is a large gap in between what we say, this is what we could afford every year, and this is what college is going to cost. And we've made it a goal for us, for our kids to wind up getting out of college with zero debt. And so in that regard, I began doing research, making it my hobby. How do you help your kids go to college debt-free? Now, I want to make sure that I'm noting here that this is not how to go to college for free. It's how to go to college debt-free. It is going to cost you some money. Even if you get a full tuition and room and board scholarship, it still costs you money. College is never free, but you can do it on the kind of budget that you can afford so that there's no debt at the end and your kids have the opportunity to do whatever they want with their lives once they hit age 22. Here's the first way you can send your kid to college debt-free. Number one, don't go to college. Now, I know this is not the option that anybody wanted to hear, but I think it's really important to point out because college is not for everyone. Our society tends to track people towards different kinds of colleges and towards the college experience in general, but they don't have to go to a stellar, outstanding, phenomenal institution like the University of Illinois, where I went when I was at college. they can go to the trades. They can get different jobs. In fact, there are a number of high-paying jobs that are out there that are in your handouts that'll make you between $40,000 and $100,000 per year if you get the kind of training in the trades that you need to be able to get. And let's face it, some of our kids are not designed to go to college. We had our third son, Josiah, tried going to the University of Nebraska at Omaha and found that he hated it. Two things he hates about college. Number one, he doesn't like to read. Number two, he doesn't like to sit through lectures. So you go, is that kid designed for college? No, but he's a genius in the garage. He's brilliant with the trades. He can make stuff that would make your mind spin, and you go, he's not designed for the college route. He's designed for the trades route. So some kids won't wind up going to the typical 4-year experience. In fact, some people will make more money by the ends of their life by being a plumber than a pediatrician. I've put the outline there on your paper that kind of knocks out how much you can save for retirement as a plumber versus a pediatrician. Why? Why do you contrast those things one against the other? Well, a plumber gets to start when they're 18 rather than starting at the end of med school when they're 26 years old, let's say. They get a head start on their earnings power earlier on in their life. They have a longer amount of time to save. They're not going to pay as much taxes as the doctor will, and they don't have expensive malpractice insurance. And all of those are equalizing factors that if somebody is wise and starts saving early, like when they're 18 years old, a few $1,000s a year, it can wind up multiplying into a very generous multi-millionaire position by the time you're 65. Now, it takes a lot of wisdom along the way, but I just want to give hope to those folks who say, I've got a kid who's probably not college bound, and that's one way to get them through debt-free when they're 22 years old. Second option is this, athletic scholarships. Athletic scholarships. Okay, if this was your game, I know you probably would not be at this seminar, but I want to at least let you know it's a possibility out there. But here's why I don't encourage parents to hope in athletic scholarships. Only 2% of people that make their high school team, and not everybody makes the high school team, but 2% of people who make their high school team get athletic scholarships. And many of these scholarships are partial scholarships. Now, it is true that sometimes a student will get a partial athletic and partial academic scholarship, but the academic scholarship would probably be there whether you were an athlete or not. Most parents would be wiser that instead of spending their money on elite sports leagues when their kid is in 3rd grade all the way through high school, instead to just save that money for college and be able to have a fund that's available for your kids that's multiplied over time to help them get through college. Because their chances of becoming an athlete good enough to be able to play on the college level are just so slim. Third option is military academies. Military academies. There are phenomenal places, the Air Force Academy, West Point, Annapolis, that give a great education to students, and when they graduate, they will graduate as an officer in their respective branch of the service. So the catch, of course, on all of this is that once you get your free degree, you owe them 4 years of your life, and whether it's in college or afterwards, you're constrained by military discipline. Now, for some students, this is going to be very attractive. For some, it'll be very repulsive. But if it's a good fit for you, you wind up getting through college debt-free. Plus, you don't have to figure out what you're going to do for your job for the first 4 years of your life. It's an outstanding way to train and develop as a human being as well. That matches up with the next one, option number 4, which is ROTC. With ROTC, you can get a top-notch education while going to a top-notch school. A free education while going to a top-notch school. Your primary extracurricular will need to be becoming an officer. So the Reserve Officer Training Corps is a system that has leadership development, career training, physical fitness. You'll find it at over 1,700 universities across America. And similar to the military academies, when you get done, you're obligated to 4 years of military service afterwards. But in this scenario, you can choose whatever college you want to go to, and the military will pick up the bill for you going to college. So in both of these cases, it's important to note that you graduate as a military officer and not as a grunt. Oftentimes, people who go to the military academies and go through ROTC never see a lick of combat themselves, but they serve in the high-level support roles that support our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marine Corps that wind up going in and doing the work in the battle. All right, option number 5 is this. Get yourself a second job and just work it off. One of the possible ways to get your kid through school debt-free is just for you as a parent to say, I will raise my hand and I will work hard on behalf of my student so that they don't have to pay for college. This is a very real option. Maybe not if you have 14 kids, but if you've just got 2 kids or 1 kid or 3, you might be able to say, I'm going to just make that my job. Now, particularly if you have a student who is interested in college, who's not academically stellar, and you have a fairly a moderate to high income, this may be the best option for you because the other options just might not work out for where your student is at. And I'd just love to say that that is a very real possibility, and some families make that kind of sacrifice because they say the education of my student is just that important. It's interesting that the cost of going to college is about the same as a full-time job during the college years that you would be doing, and it kind of washes itself out and gives your kid a chance to exit college debt-free. Option number 6 is to skim on costs, So one way to do this is go to Metro for your general education, okay, so $2,880 per year. Go there for your first 2 years. It only costs $5,600, and then you can transfer those credits to an academic institution that you think will be exactly in the zone for maybe what major you want or what track you want to be on. Metro credits transfer incredibly well, and I would say that the general education classes at Metro are on par with what you would find at a general state university. Those introductory level classes at state universities are rarely led by the professors. You almost always have the interaction of a grad student or a teaching assistant. And so what you get at Metro is as high quality as you would find for those first 2 years of school. And on the academic side, there's really no education that's lost. Plus, if you go to Metro, you can live at home and save a ton of money on room and board that way. This is kind of the combination of what we did with our third son. He decided it wasn't good for him to go to a 4-year school, so instead he decided to go to Metro and take some classes on the trades that were just what he needed for his vocational development. It was a lot cheaper to be able to go that route, and he got the tools that he needed to move into the trades that he was oriented towards. All right, option number 7 is this: live at home and go to UNO. For us in Omaha, UNO is University of Nebraska at Omaha. And it's a state university that's local here in town. If you don't live in Omaha, there may be one locally for you as well. I know some homeschool families who decided, you know what, the same kinds of things that my kid would be learning their junior and senior year in homeschool are the intro-level classes that are being taught at University of Nebraska Omaha. So they went to University of Nebraska Omaha for their first 2 years while they lived at home. And by the time they got to college, they were halfway through their degree at a very low expense. This family in particular decided to keep on living at home through year 3 and year 4, and they were able to get their college degree by age 20 for about $26,000. It was something that worked out really, really well for this family, and that might be something that works out for you as well, saving masses of money on room and board and completing a degree early. Option number 8 is this: work colleges. I don't know if you've heard of work colleges, but the most famous example in this region of the country is College of the Ozarks, which is nicknamed Hard Work U. Every student is employed by the university in order to make the university work, and in exchange, there is no tuition for students. After you get done with your federal grants and a scholarship, there's no tuition for a student. Students graduate without debt and with valuable work experience. So the College of the Ozarks is a Christian school with strong values. There's 8 other schools in this network. Blackburn College in Illinois is one of those, and you can get those at www.workcolleges.org, where you work while you're there and you don't have tuition payments. All right, option number 9 is this: Go to college while you're in high school. Go to college while you're in high school. There are a lot of different programs for people to go to college while in high school. One of them is called dual enrollment. And dual enrollment is when you're taking a class in high school, but you pay the University of Nebraska at Omaha for tuition credit, and whatever grade you get in high school gets transferred to a college transcript so that you get credit in college of 3 hours or 6 hours or whatever the class winds up being worth. It's a powerful way to be able to inexpensively get a degree or get credits for something that you're going to be studying anyway. Now, the other thing that you can do in a good public or private high school is AP classes, advanced placement classes. These are a little bit different in that instead of paying tuition at a local university, you take a test at the end of the semester. So if you take AP US History, for example, you'll take a US History test at the end of the semester, and the grade that you get on that AP test will be how many credits you wind up getting at the college of your choice. Different colleges have different standards on this, but I would say for my two oldest kids, who were very academic kids, they had, I think, in the low 30s, I think 35 and 44 hours of credit through dual enrollment and AP credits by the time they graduated from high school. So they went into college partway through their sophomore year, and this shaved off a whole year and a half worth of expenses if we were paying for their tuition, which we weren't. You'll hear a little bit more about that later, but it's still great to head into college with 1 year knocked off or a year and a half knocked off. That saves serious expenses for your family. Millard South here in Omaha also has an early college education program. Pretty easy to transfer into if you're in the Millard School District. If you're not, you can still transfer in. You make an application to transfer into the district and then to this program. And it's a very regimented program through Millard South that you take your 4 years of academics, and really you get tracked with very similar students who are on the same track, and you wind up at the end with 60 hours of college credit and an associate's degree from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. It's kind of a cool program that you can work your way through. You have to apply while you're in 8th grade, so apply in advance, and you can graduate halfway through college by the time you finish high school. If you're a homeschooler, you may want to do homeschool at Metro. So instead of taking your classes with mom or doing online classes, you drive to Metro, you take your classes at Metro, and you get college credit while you're in your last 2 years of high school. And finally, a new program that started just this year in Omaha is called Omaha Christian Halls. And you get there at christianhalls.us. And this is dual enrollment for general education classes with a Christian worldview working towards an associate's degree. And there are certain universities they've partnered with in Texas and Ohio that are great universities like Cedarville that will give you a Christian worldview while you're getting your general education requirements online. So those are some great ways to go to college while you are in high school. All right, final one, option number 10, maybe it's J on your sheets. Option number 10 is this: get great academic scholarships. And this will be the balance of the seminar, getting great academic scholarships. Here's a few of the ways to be able to get scholarships in the academic arena. Number 1. Need-based scholarships. And I'm on the top of page 5 if you're following along on your notes. If you haven't gotten those notes, go ahead and click underneath. There's a link to the notes, and you can be able to download all those as I go through. All right, so the first one is need-based scholarships, also known as It's Good to Be Poor, because you can get some great scholarships if you're a low-income family. Pell Grants are the first way to do this. This is a federal program that will give you $5,775 every year. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's $22,000 per year to help you pay for college. It's based on financial need and cost of attendance. It is not based on your academics, and so if you're somebody who's a low-income family that can get into college, fill out your FAFSA. That's your family financial aid for families and students, blah, blah, blah. It's some federal program. You'll be able to find it online, FAFSA, your FAFSA, and it'll give you that much money. If you live in Nebraska and you qualified for the Pell Grant, then also apply for the Nebraska Opportunity Grant, because that adds a bonus $1,000 per year. Now you're up around $26,000 to pay for college just by applying for those need-based scholarships. And if you live in Nebraska, I would encourage you to look up scholarships for the Susan Buffett Foundation, because they offer great scholarships for incoming freshmen with financial need. So you have to have graduated from a Nebraska high school, you have to have at least a 2.5 on your GPA, and a valid FAFSA. And if your EFC, that's your expected family contribution, is less than $10,000, well, then you are encouraged to apply for this scholarship. Here's the crazy thing, is that if you come from a Nebraska school, you're going to a Nebraska school, your income is low enough, they will pay for you to go to a state college here in Nebraska. And you can go tuition free. It's amazing. Now, the deadline in general is around February 1st, so make sure you're paying attention early in the year to get this scholarship for the following fall. Here's the truth. If you live in Nebraska, you're a decent student, and you come from a low-income family, it is not hard to go to college for free in Nebraska. Do some digging, apply for everything, and thank God for being in such a great state, such a great country, such a great church that will help you with these things. All right, next place to look at is state colleges and the grid. This is the one that I've used the most with my own kids, the grid. Usually, you can go to a college, and state schools are like this, where they'll have a grid that has your grade point average going one way and your ACT or SAT score going the other way. And you kind of look on the grid, you find out, where is my grade point average, where is my SAT or ACT score, and boom, there's a box that says how much scholarship money you're going to get. University of Nebraska, Omaha, for example, has the grid. It's got the Regents Scholarship. If you've got a 30 ACT, top 25% of your class, it will cover full tuition for 5 years. That's amazing. Chancellor's Scholarship, $3,000 for a 28 ACT. Dean's Scholarship, $2,000 for a 26 ACT. If you take a look on your notes on the top of page 6, you'll see what one of those grid formats look like. Now, this is not for a state school, this is for a private school, and sometimes private schools will have grids. This is Toccoa Falls College in Georgia, for example, and it will show you if you have this kind of an ACT or SAT, this kind of grade point average, here's how much money we will give you as a scholarship, up to $10,000 per year. Now, some people ask, is it possible to get full tuition on the grid? And the answer to that is yes. It depends on the school. Now, the UNO one that I just mentioned before, they do have a full tuition scholarship called the Regents Scholarship for a 30 on the ACT. That's an automatic full tuition scholarship, and that's something that you can surf for on the web, automatic full tuition scholarships, to see if I have the right grade point average and ACT or SAT score, how can I go to college tuition free? It'll show you which colleges you can go to tuition free. Now, in addition to these automatic scholarships, there are also competitive scholarships. And this totally varies school to school, but almost every school has at least one and maybe dozens of competitive scholarships, many of them full tuition scholarships. What does a competitive scholarship mean? Well, it means that you don't automatically get it by having a certain tuition and grade point average. You may have to come in for an interview. You might have to write essays. You might have to qualify through some different means to be able to get it that's specific to the scholarship. And you compete with other students. So let's say they have 6 of them available, and the best 6 students who apply get those scholarships. The Regents Scholarship at University of Nebraska Lincoln is an example of that. You have to have a 32 on your ACT in order to be able to just get into the hunt for it. But once you get in, they will select the very best students who have at least a 32 ACT and give them Regents Scholarship. The Walter Scott Scholarships at University of Nebraska Omaha are very popular among Christ Community engineering students. They require a 31 on your ACT, and they are competitive. They're great for engineers because they cover tuition, room and board, and, get this, maid service. One of the favorite things for an 18-year-old boy is to have free maid service. So lots of Scott scholars get good jobs at Kiewit after they're done, because it's actually Walter Scott who sponsored the scholarships, was an executive at Kiewit, and he sponsored these scholarships in order to attract more engineers to Nebraska, and you get a fast pipeline into Kiewit and other engineering places after you're done. Now, the best scholarships around the country are competitive scholarships. And if you're a sharp student, if you interview well, if you have some good test scores and some interesting extracurriculars, I would say try for these. Go for it. They could be worth $80,000 or more, and you have to find them on the college website of the college that you're applying to. All right, next level is competitive departmental scholarships. Now, every state school has scholarships for people in a particular school, like their journalism school or their business school, their art school. But what you have to do is find them school by school. I mention these in particular because these are the scholarships that are most often left unclaimed, the departmental scholarships at big schools, because people don't do the work to research them and find them. Whatever school you're looking for, check out the scholarships in your department and apply for them, because there tend to be less people who do so. All right, then on top of that, you've got scholarships that are particular to you. I asked the question, are you a left-handed son of a bacon stretcher who's going to Hawaii to major in underwater basket weaving? If that's the case, then there is a scholarship for you. It's amazing how many people from my dad works at ConAgra to my mom's a part of the Daughters of the American Revolution to I'm part of a particular church denomination. There are all kinds of different skills and connected-based scholarships that may be particular to you. Sometimes you can even get a scholarship for reading a book and writing a great book report. Classically, for the book Atlas Shrugged, there is a $10,000 scholarship for reading that book and writing a competitive book report. Here's a couple that may be relevant. If you're from Christ Community Church or from the Christian Missionary Alliance, I want to let you know about these scholarships that are available. Crown College is one that's near Minneapolis. It's a Christian Missionary Alliance school that we have a very close relationship with. Christ Community Church students going to Crown College will be assured of at least 50%, get that, 50% tuition scholarship. It's a combination of a Pell Grant, Crown's Leadership Scholarship, some academic awards. And if you are headed into ministry on top of that, then Christ Community will add to that scholarship. Usually it turns out about $6,000 to $8,000, and that deal totals around $20,000 per year in scholarships for Crown College. Talk to Brad Mock at the school at Christ Community Church if you're a CCC student who wants that kind of a scholarship. Toccoa Falls College in Georgia is another Christian Missionary Alliance school, and they've got that grid that I showed you a couple of pages ago. Could be up to $10,000 a year. There's also a church matching grant for $1,500. So if you're planning to go into ministry, you get the $6,000 to $8,000 from Christ Community that can be applied to Toccoa Falls as well, plus that $1,500. Boom, you can get yourself to pretty close to full tuition at Toccoa Falls in Georgia. Moody is a school in the Chicago area. Moody University in Chicago has full tuition scholarships for every student who goes there. Okay, get that again. Full tuition scholarships for every student who goes there. If you're somebody who's headed into ministry and you love the urban environment, Moody is right on the north side of Chicago. It's a phenomenal place if you love the city and you love ministry and you want to go to college for no tuition. Finally, there's a tuition forgiveness program in the Christian Missionary Alliance that if you go to a CMA school and you still have debt in the end, and you become a licensed or ordained or consecrated worker in the Christian and Missionary Alliance, if those things are true of you, for every $4,000 you pay off, the national movement will pay off another $4,000 for the first 3 years when you're out. So you could get out of debt $12,000 on your own plus another $12,000 from the national movement, because they want to help licensed workers be out of debt and be fully empowered to be in ministry. All right, so those are all the scholarships that I'm going to talk about specifically. You may say, oh, that's awesome, but none of those apply to me. How can I get a scholarship that will just apply to me? Well, there's a few things you can do. If you live in Nebraska, I would encourage you to go to educationquest.com. You can either go there online, or they've got offices in the Rockbrook Plaza that you can head towards, and they have made it their passion, their obsession, to help find scholarships for Nebraska students, especially if you're going to Nebraska schools, and especially if you're from a low-income family. Wow, go to Education Quest. They have got great stuff for you. There's also a place on the web called fastweb.com. And what you do is you go through a survey in there, you put in all the things you're good at, you like, all your family connections, and it will spit back a list of scholarships that you can apply for. And then finally, my favorite of all of them is college-confidential.com. The reason I love this is it's a portal site for obsessive parents who are doing research on their kids' college education. And you can do things like I talked about before. You type in automatic full tuition scholarship on College Confidential, and what you'll find is that there is some obsessive parent out there who's gone out to hundreds of websites and coalesced all of the information they can about automatic full tuition scholarships, and boom, you can get a pretty exhaustive list of colleges that you could research if you're really good, say, on the grid with ACT scores and academic scores. And I would encourage you to check out that website. You could search for a whole lot of other things. You got search engines for all kinds of stuff there. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and check that out. And the last one is bestcollegereviews.org, scholarships in Nebraska. It's the 15 best Nebraska state scholarships. Boom, say no more. Finally, I want to let you know about one scholarship that is the golden apple. This is the thing that, boy, if you can get this, it would be an amazing scholarship opportunity. This is what my oldest son, Caleb, got. Becoming a National Merit Finalist is the surest way to a full ride scholarship. Now, a full ride means tuition plus room and board. Full tuition is just the tuition, but full ride is both of those things together. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the way you become a National Merit Finalist is by scoring well on your PSAT test that you take in the fall of your junior year of high school. This is why I say it's great for people to start when they're 14 or 15 years old, because the PSAT, along with the ACT and the SAT, don't just reflect your general knowledge, they reflect a test-taking skill. Like, you can get good at taking these tests. So if you're a top 10% or top 20% student and you go, there's no way that I can score in the top 1% of the PSAT, what I would say is you probably can. If you learn the skill of test taking, if you study really hard what's going to be on the test, and if you practice along the way, it's a possibility. And really, it's just one test that takes a half a day, so it's worth the effort because it could pay off with $130,000 or more. There are 70 good universities in the United States that will give a full tuition scholarship or better to National Merit Scholars. The reason is that having National Merit Scholars increases their ranking in the USA Today, US News and World Report ranking schedule. And when that goes up, their status goes up, they're attractive to more students, etc. Some of those schools are University of Oklahoma, University of Kentucky, University of Alabama, and other flagship schools that are out there. My first two kids both went to the University of Kentucky, were in their honors program, their honors school, had a great experience. My oldest got this scholarship, which was full tuition and room and board. My second wound up on the grid, and she got a scholarship that was a full tuition scholarship at the University of Kentucky. So my recommendation is study for the PSAT and study for the ACT or SAT, depending on where you live. ACT, middle of the country, SAT, more on the coasts. All right, here's a few other tips that I have for you. Number one is the top 25% rule. If you apply to schools where you're going to be in the top 25%, you are more likely to get scholarships than if you are in the middle of the pack or the bottom 25%. Some people want to go to schools that are the highest reach that they can get to, and they wind up being one of the lowest academic students in the school. Well, you're not going to get scholarships in those schools. So try and think through, where's a school I can go that I'll be in the top 25% of the class? You're far more likely to get scholarships. Now, with that being said, I have to say, don't rule out elite schools along the way, because the elite schools tend to have huge endowments that pay big scholarships. For example, Princeton University is the school in America that has the lowest average debt for somebody who graduates. So if you can get in there, which is fantastically difficult, but if you can get in there, you'll likely graduate. The average person graduates with $6,000 in debt after 4 years. Or Northwestern University, even though it was fabulously expensive, like $300,000 for 4 years, they promise that you will not graduate with over $22,000 in debt if your parents pay the amount that's on their FAFSA. So here's what I would recommend. If you're a junior, go and visit colleges, look at what scholarships are available, select 5 schools or less, could be 2, 3, 4, 5, that you'd really like to apply to, and focus in hard on those schools. Do everything that you can to get the grid scholarships and the competitive scholarships that are there. The competitive scholarships, you just can't apply to too many schools because they are work intensive and there's only so much of you to go around. So I would encourage you to apply for those scholarships and see if you get one of the competitive ones. Now, parents, here's my advice to you. Here's how to help your students get good scholarships. We're on the last page, the last lap right here. Number 1 is get good grades. Help your student get good grades. It sounds obvious, but the truth is that grades turn into dollars in college. Having your number higher on that grade point average gets you higher on the grid. Number 2, maximize your ACT scores. Maximize your ACT scores. When it comes to scholarships, this is the single most important activity. If you think about that grid that we talked about, all of the tests you take for 4 years of high school go on one line of the grid. The other line is just your ACT score. So think about that. The most important test you take for scholarships for the future, and maybe for your entire future, is the ACT test. So I encourage my kids to begin studying early on and to retake that test 5 times in order to increase their scores. My oldest, I told you, the one who got the National Merit Finalist, he went up from a 27 to a 34 over the 5 tests that he took. My second went from a 26 to a 32 in the tests that she took. And because of those test scores, when you get high test scores, you wind up getting higher scholarships out on your journey. So I meet with my kids when they are 15 years old. I have the wow wake up talk, and then I also make them a deal. And you guys don't have to do this, but this is the deal that I make with my kids in my family. I tell them this. Instead of getting a job in high school, I think the smartest job that you can have, the one that'll pay you the most money, is studying for your ACT. And I want you to study for 5 hours a week. If you study your ACT for 5 hours a week, I will pay the equivalent of $10 an hour, $50 a week towards your automobile expenses. So in essence, I say, I'll pay for your gas and I'll pay for your insurance if you put in 5 hours a week studying for the ACT. And it's a deal that's pretty hard for our kids to refuse. They wind up studying instead of working at McDonald's or something like that. I pay for their car expenses and everybody is happy. And hopefully at the end of the time, their ACT score goes up and that high school job that they have is not worth $10 an hour. It's worth $20,000, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 in scholarship money when everything is done. Third thing that I would tell parents is make this your hobby. Your student has a ton to do. They're always online. They're always doing academics. They're always doing research. Make it your hobby to do the research alongside of them. You'll have fun, you'll bring them good information, you go on college visits with them, and you'll make a really informed choice that will be helpful. Man, you as a parent, you've got 25 years of education and learning and experience on your kids. You need to dump that into the next generation and help them out on big decisions like this. Finally, get familiar with collegeconfidential.com. That's that parent site for fellow research hounds. Get on there, research there, have a ball on that website, and it will help you out a lot. So here's my conclusion to all of this. It's a ton of work. It really is. It will take you hours and hours to make this happen. It also costs money. You may think about it when I talk about what I invest in my kids in high school to prepare them for college. If I think about all of those auto expenses, if I think about the ACT scores that or the ACT test that I pay for, if I talk about the Princeton review books that I buy them, if I talk about the college visits that we go to, both to check things out and to send them for those competitive scholarship visits, it winds up costing us $4,000 or $5,000 while they are in high school. But for me, I'm saying that $4,000 or $5,000 investment in high school, well, it pays off in a $100,000 payoff when they're in college. It winds up being worth it. You know, there's one other thing that I didn't recommend on here. I think it was in my notes, and I must have skipped over it at some point, and that is this, that there's two kinds of test prep that are really, really helpful. The John Baylor test prep here in Nebraska is a brilliant piece. If you're not in Nebraska, there's an online option that's fantastic. In fact, as a Nebraskan, we sign up for the online option, not the class option, so that our kids can watch the John Baylor videos over and over again and get better at the places that they didn't do so well at on their first ACTs. The other one is the Princeton Review Guides. These are the ones that teach you not only how to take the test and give you sample tests, they teach you how to beat the tests, and that's a fantastic resource. So John Baylor and Princeton Review. When I invest in all of those things together, $4,000 to $5,000 per kid, but the payoff is 20 times what my investment is. I know a lot of families here at Christ Community Church and at other places that I've done this seminar that have put this into practice and saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. For me, when I think about the church, this is one of the things we should do for each other. We should not just talk about how to manage the scarce resources that you have, but also how to be able to expand your resources by finding them in other places that could change the trajectory of my kid's life. I told you at the beginning that this seminar given to me one-on-one by a pastor about 10 years ago changed the trajectory of my life and my kids' lives. I hope it changes the trajectory of you and your kids' lives as well. Thanks so much for sticking all the way in. God bless you.